And prepare everything for this conference, and he is also delivering our keynote this morning. So, without you having to listen to me for any longer, I would like to introduce David Hibbs and his presentation, Judge Scouts.
Good morning. Good morning, Scouts. Good morning, Scouts. This is not the Scout room, is it? I'm sorry. I'm going to go do my good deed for the day, and I'm going to go find you your correct presenter. Would you mind taking over for just a little bit? Can you talk for just a little bit longer, Aaron?
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about Scouts and what the people's impressions of Boy Scouts are, and kind of run with that? I'll go find your presenter.
Sure. All right. So, I'm gonna be Hibbs. All right. What do you think? Am I Hibbs now? Can I be Hibbs? Okay. Awesome. We're gonna talk about Boy Scouts because I look like a Boy Scout, right? Yeah. Boy Scouts. Sure. All right. I can be a Boy Scout. Sure. What do you think of Boy Scouts? Anybody have any impressions when you think of Boy Scouts, whether or not you were in Scouts? What do you think of? Integrity. Integrity. I love it. Be prepared. I know, Preston. All right, I am so not left-handed. Let's see if I can stand on this side so you can catch that on the stream. What else? Camping, yes. The Pro Tour? All right, then. Pro Tour. Okay, the Pro Tour. Military. Badges. Merit. If I had written that above badges, that would have made more sense, right? What did I miss on that side of the room? What? Things we have to kill people for? First aid badge, okay.
Swimming across the lake.
Swimming across the lake? Okay. All right, swimming across the lake. So, question for you. These are all really, other than maybe the killing people one over there. These all seem to be really positive impressions of Boy Scouts. Does anybody have a negative impression of a Boy Scout? We got one right here. What do you think?
Every Eagle Scout I've ever met in person was a jerk.
Really?
And I've met like 4 in my life, and every single Eagle Scout I've ever met.
All right. Eagle Scouts are jerks. You got it. Ben, what do you think?
I kind of want to push back on that. There's a confirmation bias of people who are bragging about their eagle and people who are jerks.
Fair. All right, so this one is questionable. What do you think?
There's a hint of exclusivity.
Exclusivity. Exclusivity? Is that? Well, hello.
Hi.
That looks much more like a judge.
Good morning. Good morning, judges.
Jim wants one more really badly. I'm going to give you the pen.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you
These
take
are all
this
great
question from
items.
Jim.
I'll take one more from Jim before we move on.
Slow to respond to cultural changes.
Slow to respond to cultural changes. No, absolutely. That's a factor, right? All of these things, right, are valid impressions of Boy Scouts, right? All of you, I imagine, had some idea when you saw me come in wearing a Boy Scout uniform, right? For pro or con. Those of you who don't know me, my name is David Hibbs. I am your regional coordinator. I am also an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 365 in Round Rock, Texas. So I have kind of been wearing these 2 shirts for a little while now. At the last judge conference, I was not yet your regional coordinator, but the topic that came up a lot at that conference was the perception of some of the judges in your community and some concerns about those. And as I have been in these dual roles, I have been forced to look at this and realize that there are a lot of commonalities in the role of regional coordinator and in the role of being a scoutmaster and how we deal with some of these issues. So rather than talking about specifically about the scout law and being about Boy Scouts, I'm going to tie that back to being a magic judge and what a magic judge is. So being a magic judge and being a Boy Scout is more than just a shirt, right? It's more than just what you appear. It's more than what you do when you're wearing a uniform, right? Every Boy Scout meeting we start off, we take the Boy Scout oath. We talk about the Boy Scout law. This is not a talk specifically about the Judge Code of Conduct. This is a talk about some of the things that I feel, at least, underlie that Judge Code of Conduct. These, in the Boy Scout world, these are the same things that we come back to when we have a discipline problem. They're also the things that we use to pick out people who are exemplary. So again, the same thing applies in the judge world. There are 12 points. These are the same kinds of things. If you have a problem that requires that somebody refer you to the Judge Conduct Committee, it's probably because you failed in one of these 12 areas. If somebody nominates you for exemplar, it's probably because you've done something really exemplary in one of these 12 areas. The two have a very good lineup. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Like I say, this is not a talk about the Judge Code of Conduct. Judges, so scouts in the room, I know there are a few of you. What's the first item in the judge law, or the scout law? Trustworthy, right? The order and the content of the scout law is important. Why, does anybody have any idea why we start off with trustworthy? Josh?
Not trustworthy. I don't know if any of the others would matter.
It's exactly how I feel about it. Anybody else disagree? He says that if you're not trustworthy, the rest don't matter. The foundation with good relationships starts with trust. If you're not trustworthy, everything else you do, people second guess you. They wonder what your real motivation is, right? If you're smiling, but people don't trust you, it doesn't matter, does it? I can sit here and you can tell a fake smile. I guarantee you can tell a fake smile. How many of you in this room have been allowed behind the counter in your local game store because you're wearing a judge shirt? Most of you, right? How many of you have handed out product at a limited event or draft or something at your like that at your local store? It's trustworthy, right? They gotta trust that you're gonna hand the things out. Star City hands stuff out at the beginning of every event, right? They gotta make their money somehow. They can't just hand out infinite free stuff, even if it seems like it. They're trusting you with their resources, right? So it's very important that you handle this in a trustworthy way. Sometimes it happens that we're on the floor and we make a mistake, right? How does that affect our trustworthiness? It inhibits it. But yes, you want to?
It depends more on the after effect.
It depends a lot on the after effect, doesn't it? The fact is, we make mistakes. We're judges. It's a complex game. We make mistakes. It will affect our trustworthiness, the way that people view us. But the fact is, if you learn about that afterward and you come back and you say, I'm sorry, I punted that ruling. Here's what it really should happen. Here's what should have happened. Yeah, it's a way of recovering some of that respect, and they understand that. Also, if you take a few minutes to pull out your phone and go, I'm pretty sure I know how that works. Let me look that up. Or one of my favorite judge tricks in the world, you pick up that card on the table and you read it. It gives you a moment to think, and it also helps you get that ruling right. So take your time and make sure that you get it right. And remember that your trustworthiness, the way that people view you, will affect everything else, right? Okay, scouts in the room. What's the next item? Loyal. Go ahead. Can you change it or do I need to? Okay. I need to put a clicker on this. Loyal. Does this seem like a strange item to any of you as a judge? Anybody think this is strange? A little bit. Is anybody? Yeah, go ahead. You're loyal to the cause of the game. What else? Anybody else have something that you might be loyal to? Kyle? Loyal to the community. There are 3 communities that we're loyal, that we affect, right? At least. The judges, the players, and the stores. And I guess you could count wizards also. That's kind of a 4th one. But I tend to think of them also as the TO. There's loyalty to all of these, right? So what would loyalty to a store look like? Anybody?
Sharing the events whenever you have a chance, trying to get more players into your
Sharing the events, trying to bring more people into the store. That's a good one. Yeah?
Making sure not to send players from that store to other stores.
Don't send players away without good reason. I'm going to say that there are times that some TOs are doing something wrong, but the fact is, let's not take that and air it publicly, right? Let's have some respect. You can talk to that TO and you can try to fix things, but you don't want to be the one wearing this shirt and airing your grievances publicly, right? There's some loyalty there. Have some respect for that store. Jim's, I'm sure, got 8,000 things to say on this topic.
Loyalty there is like you're talking there. You would much rather have Judge Jim working in your store than Player Jim in your store, because Player Jim's going to promote his store all the time. His
Right.
local store is everything. Judge Jim doesn't say a word about his other store or any other event without blessings of the TO or the local store.
Right, when you're in a store working, let me paraphrase this, Jim. When you're in a store working, you're the judge, right? You're not there as a player. You're not there as an employee of another game store. You're there to run the event that's in that game store, right? Have some loyalty to that store. Have some respect for the TO that's paying you for your time to be there, right? How about to other judges? I'm going to move on a little bit because I have to keep this going a little bit. But how about to other judges? How can you be loyal to other judges? Anybody? Don't be condescending. That's a good one. Help out with projects. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. The other things are good too. Don't undermine other judges in front of players. Don't undermine other judges on Facebook. It's very easy. It's very, very easy, and particularly for me as regional coordinator, to hear a player come to me and say, you know, this judge didn't disqualify this player, and this player was clearly cheating. I mean, come on, can't you see how this player was cheating? How many of you have heard that kind of story? I'm sure most of you have heard stories about that cheater that got away with it, right? We have rules on where we disqualify. It's very easy to second guess another judge's decision to disqualify or not disqualify, but the fact is you weren't there. So it's perfectly fine to discuss our policies and procedures, but I just can't talk to the details of that because I wasn't there, right? So loyal, you can be loyal to your store, you can be loyal to the judge community. Jim, I'll let you give one more thing and then we're going to move on.
Do we have to be loyal to even that other judge said this?
Do we have to be loyal to other judge says? If I ever get my hands on other judge. Obviously, you don't be rude about the other judge. But the best way that I've found to handle that is, hey, I wasn't there, so I don't know the details. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. Here's how that rule works. There are a lot of times, a lot of situations, players give you half the situation because they only remember half the situation. And there was a third card on the battlefield in that EDH game that you just didn't know about. So things happen differently. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit with this next slide. So scouts in the room, what are the next 4 items that come after loyal? Helpful, friendly, courteous, kind. Hopefully these are self-explanatory as a judge. Does anybody think that these should not describe a judge? Right? I'm hoping that most of you, when you take a judge call, when someone calls a judge over to the table and you walk over, that I'm hoping that most of you respond with, "Hi, how can I help?" Right? It sets the tone for that interaction. You want to be helpful. You want players to think that you're helpful. You want TOs to think that you're helpful. Because the fact of the matter is, and I tell TOs this all the time, we as judges want all of the TOs to succeed. Not just our local game store, but we want all of the TOs to succeed because, number one, that's more opportunities for us. But number two, we're players too, right? We want TOs to succeed because if they succeed, then we have more choices on where to play and more opportunities and more people to play with, right? We can help players. We can help other judges learn. We can help TOs. Yes, you have something you'd like to say?
Something that I struggle with more on the player side, like making sure that when I'm playing in an event, that I'm helpful, friendly, courteous, and kind.
Sure.
More so than when I'm officially judging.
When you're a player, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind has a little bit different face, doesn't it? Right? No, it's like you don't want to help your opponent, so because you want to win your game. Okay, that's fine. The fact is, that's part of the game. You're competing, right? But the thing is, after the game, after the match is over, you can give some advice, you can give some feedback, or you can ask questions. Hey, why didn't you? Or more importantly, and this is the more common one that comes up, we spend time in game stores, right? Just because we're not wearing a judge shirt, because we're not running an event, doesn't mean we're not in a game store. It doesn't mean that we're not there, part of the community. You can be friendly, invite people in, help them find an event that meets what they want to play. Not everybody wants to play the same format. There are people that want to play draft, modern, limited, vintage. Anybody want to play vintage? Yeah, I know which ones of you are. You can help them find their community, and you can do so with courtesy, right? Not, what do you want? Anybody ever heard that? What now? Hopefully you don't hear that from judges very often, but treat people with courtesy when they come in, and kindness. One of the things that we do at events is we try to make sure people leave with their belongings, right? You can help people out by helping them. Is this your backpack? And pick it up and ask them. You can make sure you can tell if somebody's having a bad day, right? You've got that player off there in the back corner, their head in their hands. You just going to leave them there? Maybe. Maybe you are because you just disqualified that player and you know why the player's back there. But more often you can stop and you can ask them, hey, are you okay? Sometimes that's all it takes to make a huge difference in somebody's day. Right? Helpful, friendly, courteous, kind. Hopefully these are, like I say, hopefully these are self-explanatory to you as a judge. Yeah, Katie? What's the difference between courteous and kind? Courtesy can be, they are two different things. Kind is I'm taking a specific action to try to make your day better. Courtesy is just, maybe this guy's arguing with me, but I'm going to treat him with respect anyway, right? Or I can allow somebody to come into the shop. There is a difference between courteous and kind. Tanner?
Courteous is proactive and kindness is reactive.
To some degree. Tanner's point is that courteousness is proactive and courtesy is reactive. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to some degree, yes, that's true. To me, both are proactive. You can be proactive with both, and you can be reactive with both, right? If somebody's arguing with me, that doesn't mean that I'm going to argue back in their face. That's part of being courteous. It's part of being diplomatic. Sometimes that's part of being kind, too. I'll take one more comment on this, then I'm going to move on.
When your opponent, outstretches their hand to shake your hand for a good game or to, play well, shaking their hand back.
If someone offers to shake hands, obviously there's the GG syndrome of somebody's just angry. And you can tell the difference, right? Courteous is try to diffuse and be respectful without making things worse. The next item, I've already tipped my hand a little bit. The next item in the judge or scout law, obedient. Who thinks a judge needs to be obedient? Anybody? Who? To an extent. Who should a judge be obedient to? Anybody? Josh, I haven't heard from you yet. Themselves, the players, the rules. To the TO. Sometimes, as long as the TO is doing something right. To their team lead, that's one of the answers that I'm specifically looking for, right? If your team lead asks you to do something, Aaron, can you come up for just a minute? If your team lead asks you to do something, how do you handle it? Aaron here is handling end of round, and I have just come up from someplace on the floor.
David, can you go to table 237, please?
No. Yeah, try something else.
How about 43?
No.
Okay, what kind of table would you like to go to?
I'm going to go sit right over here.
That's not helpful.
That's not helpful, is it? It's not obedient, is it? Go ahead, Aaron. Thank you. Thank you for being a good sport and playing along. Has anybody seen this happen? No. I have. Obedient is a factor in being a judge, particularly on the floor. There are times that your team lead will ask you to do something and you may not agree with it. Now, this is a kind of an exaggerated case, perhaps with an end of round of not going to a specific table, but maybe they're asking you to do something with a slip or with results or to go watch something and you disagree with it. That's okay. It happens. But the fact is, that person is in charge for the day, particularly if they're the head judge. That means their decision for the day is final, right? You can discuss later, but at the time that they give you that instruction, there's a reason that they're giving you that instruction. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Fair? Okay. I don't think I need to talk about this too much more. What's the next item on the list, Scouts? Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient. Cheerful. Who knows a judge? Who can give me a name of a judge that is particularly cheerful that you have worked with? Mr. Reisner. Jim Schumann. Yeah. Okay. Who else wants to give me an example? Jim.
I've worked with many of the judges over the years. I always enjoyed working with, now I draw a blank.
Me, right? Me, right?
You're always fun, yes. Zandy is always cheerful and good to work with.
I'm sorry, who?
Zandy.
Zandy is definitely always cheerful. Nathaniel Thompson? Johnny? Chris Lansdale. Jessica? Andrea is definitely one of the happiest people that I've seen. Nicolette is infectiously cheerful, isn't she? I'm going to talk. Those are all great names. I'm going to pick on one of my favorite people in the judge program. Anybody in this room know Stephen Briggs? You know, all the yeses that I hear in the audience should say something about who this person is, right? Stephen Briggs is obviously well known. He is one of the other regional coordinators. Stephen Briggs came down to Dallas and head judged Star City Games Open recently. And I love working with Stephen Briggs. Every event, it doesn't matter what Stephen's role is, he brings an enthusiasm and a cheerfulness that is contagious and keeps that event rolling, right? And you can see it in the whole staff. It doesn't just affect the first person that he talks to. It affects the experience of everybody at that event. You can be that kind of judge. You can be cheerful enough. Like, if I'm sulking, if I'm up here and I'm doing the Charlie Brown walk as I go to a table, how does that affect the player experience? It's not a great thing, is it? Would you like to say something about it? They're a lot less likely to make a call if they think they're bothering you. That's absolutely true. But that's what we're there for, right? We're there to help make sure that people have a good experience at that event. Cheerful. Let's move on a little bit. What's the next item? Thrifty. Thrifty. I hear a couple people, thrifty? What does that have to do with being a judge? Who wants to throw an idea out there on how being thrifty affects your life as a judge? Yes. Absolutely. Thriftiness is not just about money. It's about your time management. And being able to flip around and get things done is definitely an aspect of thrifty. Yes?
You have to be quick on your feet.
You have to be quick on your feet. Yes?
You should be able to explain in 10 words or less what your ruling is and why.
Thriftiness in words is, I think that might be an exaggeration, but thriftiness in words, you don't want to go on for 3 days explaining the ruling. You do want to get the ruling made, right? Katie, would you like to add something?
A good synonym, I think, is resourcefulness.
Resourceful, that's one thing. Q.
It's essentially being efficient.
Being efficient.
All of your resources. Time is the greatest example, but with giving a ruling, get the job done.
These are all good answers. I still haven't heard the couple big ones that I'm looking for yet. Robert?
Being able to hold a tournament when word goes down using the land.
That's absolutely an attribute of a good judge. Being able to run an event when whir is down is definitely resourceful. But it's not quite what I'm looking for. Jim?
I'm looking for possibly the assignment, delegation of assignments to people being more efficient in using your people.
Delegating versus doing things yourself is an aspect. I'm going to continue to pick on Jim because I know it's one of Jim's favorite topics. Jim, think about some of your other favorite topics and see if you can get there. No? Starting, it's not just time.
Saving the TO money.
There we go, saving the TO money. That's one of the things, right? You're working for the TO. They're giving you resources to run this event. They're giving you packs. They're giving you paper. How much paper does it take? Level 2s, how much paper does it take to print a level 2 test? As much as 50 pages? Yeah. What if you printed double-sided? Less. Half as much? What if you print now 2 pages per side? Yeah. Well, the fact is that until recently, that has been both readable and it has saved a lot of paper, and it definitely affects your store's bottom line. If they're willing to let you use their paper to print a judge test, you can at least you can do is thank them by not using all of their resources. Don't throw extra packs out, right? Again, the TO is giving you resources. If you mangle a stack of slips as the paper team member at a Star City Games Open, and they hand you the stack of slips, and now I've torn 4 sets of slips. That's a lot of paper, isn't it? Take your time and get it right. It's much better to cut that cleanly the first time and not mangle the paper. And again, that comes back to time management too, right? Because it's a lot faster if you do it right the first time. There's one more item that I'd like to touch on this, and a lot of people don't like to think about it, but it is an item. Yes?
I don't know that I would be able to go to as many GPs as I have if I didn't make a point to room with other people or save money on my flight.
You're getting very close to what I'm looking for, yes. Make sure that you are doing everything you can to save yourself money when you're going to these events. But what she hasn't quite, where we haven't quite gotten, but she's touching on, your time is valuable. Your knowledge and experience are valuable. I don't want to hear any of you talk about working for free. I know this is a sore topic for a lot of people, and a lot of people are very timid and afraid to ask a TO for their compensation. I have a couple TOs that are particularly sore with me right now because my level 2s don't want to work their PPTQs without a guarantee of a minimum level of comp. You guys are all in here spending your Saturday at a conference learning about being judges and being better judges. You spend time during the week studying rules and policy documents. You spend time in the store answering questions, and now you're at the vet spending your Saturday not playing, and you're there and you have driven some amount of distance. Your time, your resources, your skills and knowledge, those are all valuable things, right? Now, where you value those, that's up to you. But I guarantee you that's not a zero amount. I don't want to hear anybody saying that's worth zero. I'm part of the exemplar team, so I review exemplar nominations every wave. And every wave, I have to reject somebody's nomination because thanks for coming up and giving up your Saturday and doing it with no expectation of compensation. No. The exemplar program is not a means of compensation, number one. But number two, I don't want to hold somebody up as an example for doing that because you're all working hard for that. Did you have something you wanted to add on that, Jim?
Just briefly on that, a lot of times I've heard frequent judges that are working for less comp than they should be and other things, that if they didn't do it, where would the community be without it?
Right, and that's a common reply, right? Of well, if I didn't do this, where would my community be? Well, you can train new people to come in, but you're still doing it. Yeah, you love the community, but doing things right is, again, loyalty to the judge program and your fellow judges, because I'm not going to work for less than he is if he wants to come work the event, because that's not fair to him either. Josh, did you want to add something?
Yeah, it's talking about doing it for free because of the community. I think it also goes back to commonly referred to the campsite rule of you want to leave things in a better place for the next person as opposed to...
We want to continually improve things, right? We want to leave things better than we found it, and we don't want to lower those minimum standards, whether it's in terms of rules or policy, experience for players, or in terms of compensation. I'll take one more comment and then I'm going to move on. Go ahead, Katie. It's good for the community having a skilled judge at the event. And that's something that a lot of the TOs have a hard time quite grasping, is what is the value that you bring to my event over having somebody behind the counter. That's an opportunity for you to discuss that and explain all of the things that I just talked about that you do in order to achieve that level 2 certification. It's not easy, right? Getting there and maintaining it is not easy. Okay, so let's move on. What's the next item after thrifty? Brave. Moving on from talking about compensation into being brave. Obviously, being willing to discuss that issue with a TO is brave. What else? Who else has had to do something that is brave as a judge? First, let me raise a show of hands. How many have had to do something brave as a judge? A few number of you. I think everybody should raise their hand because I think just being a judge is brave. Right? Because the first thing is you step into that room and you're willing to step in between an answer, and you're willing to do answered questions. It's public speaking. I'm up here giving a public speech, but anybody that steps up as a head judge is going to do some head judge announcements. You're going to have to talk to people. The magic community consists of a lot of introverts, right? A lot of us have made most of our friends as a result of magic. So coming out of our shell to talk to somebody is brave. What else? I gave you a few freebies. What else did somebody else want to say is brave? Does somebody want to tell a story? Yeah.
Being able to demand a certain level of sportsmanship from players that may not exhibit it normally.
Being able to demand sportsmanship from somebody who may not normally exhibit that. Yeah. Stepping in when somebody's being unsportsmanlike, that takes a level of bravery.
Making tough calls in which one player is going to get, the unfortunate.
Along those cases, making the tough calls in general, but there are definitely cases when you take a judge call and I come up to the table and it's flat out a judgment call, and I know no matter which way I rule in this case, one of these two players is going to be angry with me. That's a hard spot to be in, but you know it happens as a judge. Who else has a particular, I still see a lot of hands. Who else has something, a particular case of being brave? Joe?
So in general, telling a TO or another judge that they might be doing something wrong.
Telling a TO or another judge they might be doing something wrong. feedback is important. Telling somebody, you can do that better, A, that's a skill in diplomacy, but B, just being willing to step up and tell that person that something was wrong, that's definitely brave. Jason, would you like to add something?
I had a store that disagreed on a disqualification I was doing, and I felt that it was brave to stand up and make my case.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a big one, right? Disqualifications in general are a big case of being brave, right? Anybody had to disqualify a friend?
Not disqualified.
Not disqualify maybe, but investigate, but have a serious talk with. Yeah, if your store or TO disagrees with you on a DQ, and you need to stand for that, yeah, let me tell you, that's a hard spot to be in. If that TO doesn't want to support you on that DQ, it's not easy by any stretch. John, would you like to say something? Yeah, we touched on that a little bit earlier too, right? Admitting when you're wrong. Oops, I completely screwed up that ruling. That takes some courage too, right? Like I say, there are a lot of cases being brave is a big deal. Stepping in on sporting, when somebody's being unsporting, that's brave. When somebody is arguing with you, being willing to make that hard decision, that takes bravery. I'll take one more comment, Tanner. Something as simple as delivering a confident ruling. If players can sense fear, my friends, computers and players can both sense fear, and they will treat you accordingly. Sometimes just stepping up and being confident in the delivery of that ruling, you know that this is, like I say, that situation when you know one of the players is going to be unhappy no matter what. Have some confidence in your ruling. If you're in that spot as the floor judge and I'm the head judge, I'm probably going to uphold you because you're the responding judge. You've probably got a bet, unless I've got a good reason, I'm probably going to uphold it because you spent some time already, hopefully, making sure your ruling was correct. Right? What's the next one? Clean. How many people have heard this one? The J in judge stands for janitor. A lot of judges seem to have forgotten this one lately, and so I think it's important to talk about this for just a moment. But part of our role, particularly at a big event, is keeping that venue clean. And it's not the most pleasant thing that we do, but it is something that's necessary. It's gotten to the point that in the last exemplar wave, one of the exemplar nominations that I reviewed came from a GP head judge. And he said, at GP, fill in the blank, you pushed in chairs. It's an expectation now. But the fact is that the reason he felt that that was exemplary was because judges weren't doing it. And I worked with him to improve that nomination because I could see what he was getting at. When one judge on a GP staff pushes in chairs and that's noticeable, something's gone wrong, right? Be clean, help clean in the event, clean up the event, push in chairs. What other ways can we be clean? Hygiene. Sometimes this community is not known for having the best hygiene, isn't it? Hopefully judges are the exception. I want you to all smell, at least not smell horrible when you come to make a ruling. I know sometimes the pressure's on and you're sweating, but try to be aware of that. Yes, would you like to say something? The uniform, absolutely. There's absolutely a difference in the shirt that comes out of your trunk, crumpled in the back corner, from the one that has been at the dry cleaners. Now, that said, you don't have to take your judge shirt to the dry cleaners. Do wash it, but when you travel to an event, just about every hotel room has an iron in that hotel room, right? If not, you can probably ask at the front desk to get one, and you can make it at least look nice. If you don't have a lint roller, ask around, somebody probably does. I know this is a pet peeve of Jim's, but how many different buttons should I put on my collar?
As many that'll fit.
As many as it'll fit. Should I put all 10 Ravnica Guild pins around my collar? Just the ones for the blue guilds, right? If you're the head judge, you can wear 2 Azorius pins so you're balanced. I've done that. Don't go over the top, right? I'm willing to accept, and I think most head judges and TOs are willing to accept a little bit of personalization because you're not just a number. You are a judge. You are an individual that's a part of this community. If you want to wear a Texas flag on your lapel, I don't think that probably anybody's going to complain about it. We're in Waco, the Texas Ranger Museum. The Texas Ranger Museum is across the street. One of the things I like to wear is our Texas Ranger badge. Aaron was kind enough to have this fancy badge made up for me. Thank you again, Aaron. I think it's really cool. A couple people have individual unique name tags that they like. I'm okay with that. But be aware of the example that you're setting. It is called a uniform, right? Black shoes, black pants, black shirt, black belt, maybe a fancy belt buckle. We are in Texas. But have some awareness of the impression that you set when you walk into that room wearing that uniform. Yeah?
Also, WotC and most TOs expect us to maintain a family-friendly environment.
Absolutely. The TOs, in general, expect us to maintain a family-friendly environment. So clean language is absolutely important also, right? It touches on uniform, but it goes farther than that, doesn't it? Is that what you're trying to get at? Yeah.
Inappropriateness of like sleeves and playmats.
Inappropriateness for sleeves and playmats. Yeah, I hadn't even actually had that on my list for this slide, but that is a great point. That is something that we as judges can help take care of. There was one particular event that I have a player come in that he works at a, shall we say, a ladies' club as one of the performers. And he had some of his promotional cards that he was using as tokens. On one hand, I thought this was awesome and hilarious. On the other hand, I had to say, I'm sorry, but I can't let you use those today. So keep it appropriate on all levels, my friends. Yes?
Sometimes that can mean approaching a player away from the area.
Yeah, sometimes the touches in bravery also of being able to approach that player and say, I can't let you use that play mat. Taking them aside. What? Make sure. And sometimes addressing other people's hygiene issues. To be honest, I try to defer those to the TO because we don't have a floor rule about that. They're not breaking a game rule. They're not breaking a tournament rule. Obviously, it is affecting the comfort of some people around them, so you might think about a USC minor, but no, it's not an appropriate use of USC minor either. I would much rather have the TO approach that person and say, go home, take a shower, and come back. And yes, I've had TOs do that for me. One more thing on this slide, and go ahead.
I have never had a player complain about me letting them know that they have a slight wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah, the comment is, I've never had a player complain about me saying, hey, you have a slight wardrobe malfunction. Most players would prefer that they know so that they can take care of it. Most players. Okay, on that note, what's the next item?
Reverend.
Yeah, last item on the list. Reverent. This one's a little bit awkward, perhaps, misleading, confusing. Who has a thought on what reverent means as a judge? Nobody? Anybody? Haven't heard from you yet.
Maintaining the respect for the event.
Maintaining the respect for the event. Respect and politeness toward everybody involved. That's kind of where I wanted to go with this. Reverent, to a lot of people, particularly in the Scout community, carries a note along with it of a religious significance. I don't think that's necessarily the key point. I think the key point here is respect, right? It doesn't matter if you are a Christian or a Muslim or a Sikh or whatever religion. The magic community, let's be honest, most of the members of the magic community have been outcast at some point, right? It's not a comfortable place to think about, but we're not here to judge people. We're here to play a game, right? We're not here to be condescending. And let's be honest, the Scouts even have come to recognize this. Jim mentioned that Scouts are slow to keep up with social change. I have no argument for that. The Judge program is a lot better about that. The magic community as a whole is better about that. There's a lot that we can learn from each other, whether you agree with that person's religious faith or not. I don't care. You know, if they're here to play the game, unless it's causing somebody else a significant problem beyond just the fact that this person is there, because they're using it to insult somebody or say you shouldn't be here because that's not a Christian thing to do. Let's be respectful regardless, right? I don't care your gender, your national origin, ethnicity, your religion. I don't care about any of that when you're at my magic event, right? I might enjoy talking to you and learning about some of the aspects of that, but because we're all better off learning from one another. But let's be respectful, right? And to me, this item right here is the underpinning of our unsporting conduct rules, right? If you're not being respectful of somebody else, if you're going to cause somebody else to not have a good time, let's give you that warning. So, reverent, let's be respectful of one another. So those are the 12 points, right? Now, this is not just while you're wearing the uniform, as I said at the beginning. This is every day, every interaction, every shirt. It doesn't matter if I'm wearing this blue shirt, if I'm wearing one of these regional polos, if I can have it the right direction. If I'm wearing one of these, it doesn't matter if I'm wearing one of these, or if I'm wearing one of these, or a t-shirt. These 12 items are every day. Right? Most people in the Judge program are trying to improve themselves in some way, shape, or form. And like I said earlier, this is not necessarily about JCC. This is not about the Judge Code of Conduct. This is about integrity, my friends. And isn't that what you would really want somebody to say about you? How great would that be to have somebody at your funeral say he was a man of great integrity or a woman of great integrity? Isn't that what we all really want? Thank you for your attention. I hope that this has been informative and inspired you to be better people and better judges. And remember that there are 12 things, 12 points that you can live every day, whether you're wearing your judge shirt, whether you're in the store, or whether you're on Facebook. A judge is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Thank you.